Our scientists are deeply concerned about this variant. I will say we don't know enough about this variant. No one does. I think probably the UK knows more than most because of the excellent work we do on surveillance. But I think it is right that we take this approach and we remain cautious.
That was the UK's Health Secretary Sahid David raising alarm over the new COVID-19 variant detected in South Africa. Health authorities fear that the new strain, which has a high number of mutations, could fuel outbreaks in many countries and could potentially evade vaccines.
Despite this, the Philippine government's health advisors insist it's not yet time to reimpose strict restrictions. They note there is still a lot we don't know about this new variant. Good evening, I'm Maricel Halili.
I'm Robbie Alampay, you're watching The Big Story. The detection of a new South African variant is raising serious concerns in different countries. So far, there are indicators that it is so badly mutated that it is radically different from the original virus from Wuhan.
However, experts have yet to gather more substantial information on this new variant. The Philippine government assures the public that it is actively monitoring the situation. The big story in my report. A new COVID variant found in South Africa is giving countries another thing to be cautious about. According to the World Health Organization, 100 samples have been found positive of B11529 variant, some of which were already reported in Botswana and Hong Kong.
But it is something to watch. Everybody that's out there needs to understand that the more this virus circulates, the more opportunities the virus has to change.
The detection of the new variant has already concerned British officials. They say that the variant has double the number of mutations than the Delta variant. This suggests that it may be more transmissible and less effective against the current vaccines. As a precautionary measure, the UK has temporarily banned flights from South Africa and 5 other neighboring countries.
I will say we don't know enough about this variant. No one does. I think probably the UK knows more than most because of the excellent work we do on surveillance. But I think it is right that we take this approach and we remain cautious.
But while other countries are imposing travel bans, the Philippines continues to ease restrictions. According to the recent IATF resolution, fully vaccinated Filipinos and tourists from green list countries may enter the country from December 1 to 15. They can forego quarantine if they present a negative RT-PCR test taken 72 hours prior to the departure. For now, Malacanang is still studying the possible impact of the new variant.
We're actively monitoring any developments and if kinakailangan ng agaran at immediate action ay gagawin po ng ITF.
Infectious disease expert Dr. Edsel Salvania admits that this variant is something to keep an eye on. But medical experts still have limited information about this new mutation.
While nakakabahala yung presence of certain mutations, hindi automatic na mas nakakamatay ito or mas natransmit or mas bumababa yung epekto ng ating vaccines.
For now, the new South African variant is not yet considered a variant of interest or a variant of concern. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
What are some possible implications for this new variant for the Philippines? Let's get insights from infectious disease expert Dr. Rodgin Solante. Dr. Solante, welcome once again to The Big Story.
Hi, Robbie. Welcome. Thank you for the invite.
Sir, we know it's early and as we keep saying in our reports, limited information. Nonetheless, what do we know and what don't we know about this new variant?
Yeah, so far as reported, there are 50 mutations and there are 30 critical mutations in the spike protein, as reported by the South African Department of Health. And that said a lot in terms of how transmissible this variant can be because of those mutations. But again, these are still laboratory findings. We need data coming from epidemiological and clinical. So ibig sabihin, yung mga talagang nahawaan, ano ba ang risk ng transmissibility and how this virus can make vaccines ineffective. No? It's still very early, but we really need to make a step of caution, despite that it's too early and the data are still raw.
That step of caution, does that mean it's not too early to start considering travel restrictions from South Africa or that entire region?
For now, I don't think we need a travel restriction, but we'll continue to strictly monitor the border and strictly implement also the policies that the IATF has implemented among travelers coming in from different countries.
Okay, now Dr. Solante, you are an infectious disease expert. Not to get too technical about it, but a lot is being made about the fact that this particular variant has more mutations. Ano ba yung implications talaga nun? Bakit yon pinagtutuunan ng pansin?
Okay, no? Itong mutation, especially doon sa spike protein, alam natin na ang spike protein ay yung part ng COVID virus na siya yung kumakapit sa katawan natin, no? And when you have all of this mutation, mag-iiba na ang hugis ng mikrobyo na to the point na hindi na ma-recognize easily ng immune system natin. And that's why it will be highly transmissible. It can go inside our body. Madali tayo mahawaan, madaling magkaka-infection, madaling also tayong makakahawa sa iba kung sino man yung nahawa. And this will have an implication in terms of kung we'll continue to observe and not comply or we will not be complying with the health protocol. Napaka-importante ngayong holiday dahil ang implikasyon nito is we need to be more vigilant in our health protocol.
Okay, Dr. Solante, maraming salamat po. That was infectious disease expert Dr. Ron Jean Solante. Just how widespread is this new heavily mutated COVID-19 variant? Tonight's big number, 90%. That's the percentage of new cases believed to have been caused by the new variant among 1,100 new infections recorded in the South African province of Gauteng on Wednesday. This was reported by a bioinformatics professor who runs gene sequencing institutions in 2 South African universities. If the new strain does become a variant of interest or concern, it will likely be named after the Greek letter nu.
These are the other big stories tonight. Some areas in Luzon are still seeing shortages, not of vaccines, but of syringes and manpower just days before the massive national vaccination drive. An ally of presidential aspirant Bong Go says the senator is eyeing to pull out of the presidential race. But other party mates believe Go is still very much willing to fight. And a longtime mentor of pole vaulter E.J. Obiena reveals to One News that the athlete was already being courted by multiple countries, even before his conflict with the Philippine Athletic Track and Field Association. These big stories after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Maricel Halili. Just days before the 3-day national vaccination drive, some areas in the country continue to suffer supply issues, not of vaccines, but of syringes and manpower.
Still, government is hopeful that it can achieve its vaccination targets. JC Cosico with this report.
The Rural Health Unit of Pila, Laguna is already running out of syringes, just days before the country's massive 3-day national vaccination drive. Health workers explain there's a shortage of syringes that are required for certain vaccines.
Sir, pahirapan kumuha ng ngayon, ng 0.3 na auto-disabled syringe. Unlike sa Pfizer kasi sir, 0.3 talaga.
The syringes left may still be used, but it takes a longer time to prepare them.
Sir, ito yung tuberculin. So, kailangan pa natin tanggalin yung needle tapos papalitan natin ng gauge 23 needle.
So,
Mas hassle po dun sa magpe-prepare. So,
bakit hassle?
kasi sir, tatanggalin mo pa isa-isa to.
DOH Calabarzon has already procured additional tuberculin syringes while waiting for their allocation from the national government. Aside from syringes, manpower also seems to be a worry in Laguna.
Nurses namin medyo konti, yung staff ko kakonti din, halos hindi naman namin pwedeng itigil yung programa namin daily. Happy talaga yung tao. So hinahati namin.
This is why 49-year-old vaccinator Melinda Brillantes wants to be fully prepared for the massive vaccination drive.
Ready naman namin talaga yung aming sarili. So kailangan talagang kami ay fit to work.
Laguna is still optimistic they will meet its 600,000 target of vaccinated individuals.
Tinatap na po yung mga hospitals. Kaya nga lang po, at the same time, yung mga hospitals, may inaasikaso din syempre yung patients. So, hindi basta-basta ma-pull out po lahat ng manpower. Best effort.
Over in Metro Manila, the city of Navotas also prepares for the 3-day drive. Apart from putting up 8 vaccination centers, the city will also hold 3 bakuna nights.
Yung bakuna night po is to cater po for those who are working po sa night shift ng mga consignation po namin. Para hindi po sila mapupuyat.
Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. admits the government still needs 50,000 volunteers for the national drive. Only 17,000 are available for the activity, including 30 teams from the AFP. The agency has now asked DepEd, CHED, and TESDA to provide additional manpower.
Napakataas ng ating aim, but we are trying to really see na makuha natin yung 5 million a day.
For News 5, JC Cosico, we are One News.
As the number of COVID cases come down each day, patients admitted in hospitals are also coming down. But health experts continue to warn against complacency. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to this story.
Mas mahirap talaga yung Delta variant.
Dr. Jonathan De La Cruz, COVID team leader of the Santa Ana Hospital in Manila, recalls the hardships they experienced during the Delta variant surge. But more than a month since the worst surge has passed, hospitals are finally decongested. In the last few days, the new daily cases hovered below 1,000 and an ICU utilization rate of 29%.
Experts largely attribute this to a ramped-up vaccination which has already inoculated 95% of the target population in the national capital region.
Santa Ana Hospital, for example, used to run beyond 100% COVID capacity. But now they only have 15 COVID patients with more still to be discharged. But Dr. Encarnita Blanco Limpin, president of the Philippine College of Physicians, said it's non-COVID patients that are now taking up the beds.
Kasi hindi nga sila masyadong nagko-konsulta noong panahon ng pandemic, no?
But experts are warning that we are not out of the woods yet. On Thursday, South Africa announced it has discovered a new COVID variant that could yet be the most worrisome of all. The variant hasn't been found here yet, but there are already 2 cases in Hong Kong.
Because of this, Limpin urges the government to do everything they can to make sure that this variant doesn't get into the country.
Maintain natin yung requirement ng RT-PCR. Hindi tayo pwedeng mag-rely doon sa vaccination card lang. Kasi alam naman natin, kahit bakunado ang isang tao, pwede pa rin siyang magkaroon ng COVID-19 infection.
Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
Senator Bong Go had an emotional outburst in front of President Duterte and his partisans last Wednesday. Does it mean that he is considering backing out of the presidential race, or is this a ploy, as some suspect, to just win over some voters? Mayan Los Baños has this story.
In a palace meeting last Wednesday, Senator Bong Go went emotional again in front of his own party mates and supporters. In an interview with Frontline Tonight, Cagayan Governor Manuel Mamba, who attended the meeting, said he thought Go was already backing out.
Sabi niya na hindi pa nga niya panahon siguro at ayaw din niya na nasasaktan at parang nahirapan na ang ating Pangulo. At that the way I understood it, no, is umaatras siya sa presidential race.
Mamba added that it seems like President Duterte already accepted Go's decision.
Sabi rin ng ating presidente, well, the cat is out. Sabi niya, siya na yung nagsasabi na para umaatras siya. And who am I to refuse?
News 5 asked Senator Go if Mamba's claim is true. Go said he's still contemplating for a final decision. In an interview with Ted Filon and DJ Chacha on Radio 5, PDP Laban Secretary General Melvin Matibag said Mamba might have missed some conversations.
Sa Pangulo nagsalita, ano ba? Sabi niya gano'n, laban tayo. Sabi po ng mga gobernador, laban po tayo. Ang naging ending po, ang sabi ni Senator Bongo, magdadasal kami ni Pangulo. Wala naman po categorical na sinabi sa tatakbo.
For Grepper Belhica, National Advisor of Go's Party, PDDS, or Federalismo ng Dugong Dakilang Samahan, they don't believe the senator is backing out either.
Give up, malabo yun. Kung tama ang basa ko, sa kanyang ugali na matapang talaga yun eh. So let's give him time.
According to Professor Dennis Coronacion, chairman of USC's Political Science Department, one possible reason for Go to withdraw is that he can already see himself losing.
Kung ibabase dun sa kanyang survey ratings as vice presidential candidate, hindi maganda ang kanyang numero. So maaring naging dahilan yon upang isipin niya na ganun din ang mangyayari sa survey ratings niya ngayong tumatakbo siya bilang sa pagka-presidente.
But Coronacion said that until Go formally withdraws his candidacy, there's still a chance that he will fight. The expert believes Go's stance may also be a strategy, as some Filipino voters prefer the hesitant underdog. But another question to ask is, where will Go supporters go?
Yung kanilang pagiging malapit sa Pangulo, sa tingin ko it's a determining factor for the Bongo supporters to migrate and support ang balan ni Sara Duterte and Bongbong Marcos.
Should Go back out, this may also be the first time that a ruling party will not be able to field any presidential candidate. Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
Here are some of the election stories we're watching today. COMELEC did a preliminary conference on the first petition to cancel presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos' certificate of candidacy. Some martial law victims also protested in front of COMELEC to support the petition. Apparently, the case is yet to progress as COMELEC needs to resolve some motions. There is no schedule yet for a second hearing. Former Senator Marcos and Davao Mayor Sara Duterte are back in vote-rich Cebu, but this time as running mates. Marcos Jr. spoke to a group of businessmen and to a 100-member transport group in the province. The tandem was also the guests of a municipality league. Cebu comprises of 5% of the overall voting population. COMELEC says candidates should first secure a permit from both the poll body and LGUs before conducting in-person campaign activities. Allowed crowd numbers also depend on the category level of the area. All forms of physical contact like shaking of hands, kissing, or even taking selfies are prohibited. More big stories after the break. Keep it here on One News.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Maricel Halili. The Philippines is ready to welcome more foreign businesses by 2022 at least, according to the country's economic managers.
They note the country is on track to further ease restrictions by January. Pamela Vasquez gives us a front seat to the story.
Socioeconomic Planning Secretary Carl Chu says they're getting reports that foot traffic inside shopping malls are now hitting as much as 81% on weekends.
Major malls are reporting significant increase at 50% of pre-pandemic normal capacity during weekdays and a high of 81% during weekends.
This comes as most of the country was placed under Alert Level 2, which technically allows kids to go to malls and restaurants. But some LGUs like Parañaque have begun tightening rules again. For instance, minors below 12 years old can only step foot inside shopping centers for essential needs. Still, Chu says they're on track to downgrade the National Capital Region to Level 1 by January.
The first is to reduce the artificial barriers to vaccination, and this will include at the appropriate time expanding the vaccination to children age 5 and above. The second is to move to Alert Level 1 by January 2022. Number 3 is the resumption of face-to-face classes.
Chua was speaking to the Foreign Chambers of Commerce together with Finance Secretary Sonny Dominguez and BSP Governor Ben Jokno. They were pitching foreign investors to invest in the Philippines once more. Jokno, for one, highlighted the country's push for digitalization.
We target half of financial transactions to be done electronically and 70% of Filipino adults to have financial accounts by 2023.
Dominguez, meanwhile, said they're committed to ensuring a smooth transition to the next administration.
This administration will make sure to help the next president and the next generations to address the fiscal and economic risks brought about the pandemic. Whoever wins the upcoming elections will need a solid tax reform program.
The economic manager said the rest of President Duterte's term will be focused on modernizing government and rolling out infrastructure. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
In world news, the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York has returned in full after being crimped by the pandemic last year. The lineup of balloons, floats, marching bands, clowns, and performers wound through the streets of Manhattan as thousands of spectators came together for the 95th annual Thanksgiving Day tradition. U.S. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden also sent Thanksgiving greetings to Americans.
For the big story in sports, Jim Lafferty, longtime mentor of pole vaulter EJ Obiena, has come out to clarify the late payments made by the Olympian to his coach, which prompted a probe of the Philippine Athletics Track and Field Association. One News' Gretchen Ho sits down with Lafferty to discuss the matter. Let's listen in.
Jim, first of all, I'd like to ask you about this article that came out today from the Daily Tribune, claiming that EJ hasn't paid Vitaly Petrov since 2018, yet he had liquidation reports that showed he had been paying the Ukrainian coach since 2018.
Let's start with some simple facts. One is I have seen now what the work of a forensic auditor has done. There were payments made to Vitaly Petrov in 2019. There were payments made in 2020, and there were payments made in 2021. So anyone saying that he only paid recently in 2021, that is an outright false statement.
How were these payments done? Because the claim is that EJ paid late.
Who was late? Everybody's late on the whole thing. Now, here's the interesting thing. This system is so messed up. You have a Filipino athlete living in Italy, Gretchen. Now, what's the currency in Italy? It's the euro. EJ needs euros to live. He needs euros to pay the bills. His coach is a Ukrainian national living in Italy. He wants to be paid in euros. He doesn't want pesos. In 2020, last year, he comes to me in November and he says, Sir Jim, I have to pay Vitaly. I've got all these pesos and he only wants euros. I called my bank. My bank said, we only do transfers in dollars and you have to handle the euros separately. He said, could you help me? I will pay you the pesos and you pay Vitaly in euros. What did I say? My wife and I said, of course we'll help you. So I wired Vitaly 21,000 euros and EJ paid me 21,000 euros in pesos.
Jim, this has turned into a public mess.
Yep.
How far are you willing to take this? And where is EJ now with still remaining with the Philippines, still competing for the Philippines?
EJ is a grown man. He makes all his decisions. I have no influence on any of this whatsoever. So it's really up to him. I've continually told him, call Patafa and reach détente. I called even Patafa and said, please reach out to him and let's stop this thing. If something doesn't happen soon, he won't, because he'll either step away. And it's no secret in today's world that a number of countries are looking at this situation and laughing uncontrollably how the Philippines is driving away a world-class athlete that they can offer a passport to.
Are there offers already from other countries?
Absolutely.
How many countries?
Multiple. It's not one, it's multiple.
Wow. Pinanood ko yung video ni Gretchen kanina umaga. That really is so concerning. Diba? I mean, we're hoping that it gets resolved one way or the other.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, sabi nga ni Lafferty, other countries are laughing, and not only that, they're offering EJ passports. Dito ka na lang.
Yeah, kasi kapag gano'n naman ka-talented, why not? At saka nakakahiya, grabe. Talagang pinoproblema natin, peso to euro. Oh
Sana maayos among other things. Let's enter the Christmas season na medyo masaya.
Exactly.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, first Sunday of Advent na sa linggo. Malapit na ang Pasko. And tandaan po natin, part dito ng preparation for Christmas, November 29 to December 1, malaking push to get as many people vaccinated as possible.
15 million Filipinos ang target nila for the National Vaccination Day. Yan yung drive ng government. Hopefully, mag-work siya. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow or on Monday at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
And on behalf of Gretchen Ho, I'm Maricel Halili. We're down to our last 29 days before Christmas.
29 days.
29 days.
Kulang na yan ng isang buwan.
Oo.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we are One News. Good evening.
Tayo'y maging liwanag ng Pasko.